Hey, sewers. I am super excited that you are joining me today for another adventure and Friday Sews Live. And as always, I'm having tech difficulties. Well, I'm not having tech difficulties, actually. Jen, who is going to be my guest today, is having some audio issues with her computer. So that's why we're starting a tiny bit late, but she is working it out to join by phone. So hopefully, we will get her connected shortly, and I will be able to start chatting with her about today's topic. And while we wait, I'm just going to give y'all a brief update on what is going on in my world. I have been working on my cape and it is almost done. I had a problem with the belt because I didn't realize that the size I was making was a medium and the belt was too small. And then once I actually added length to the belt, it was still too small. And then it was too wide to go through the holes in the cape. So I ended up having to kind of put some pieces together to make that work. And it did, thankfully. But now I have to sew on the hooks and eyes down the front for the closure. The original ones that I sewed on did not work, and they just kept flopping open. So I got some different ones. I'm in the process of putting that on, and fingers crossed by, the next cold snap, which it's kind of cold, so I might be able to wear it to church on Sunday. We'll see if it keeps getting a little bit colder. The temperature here has been dropping throughout the day, so we shall see. But that's kind of the main thing I've been working on and trying to get that finished. In addition, I have been doing the patterns for the projects I plan to sew this month. And I didn't realize, like I knew in my head that February was a short month, but it wasn't until I was looking at the calendar and I was like, oh, we're already in the second week of February. That's basically giving me like 2 weeks to get all this, 2 weeks and a few days to get all this sewing done. So I definitely think I will be done and we'll have a good update of everything I sewed. And there goes Clementine. She's in here and she won't leave, and I can't kick her out because then she meows at the door. So I'm going to try and keep her from doing that again. She is walking around on the table. Let me just grab her. Okay, I got the cat. Okay, sorry about that. Live streaming with pets, it's always interesting. I think Honey's outside, so she should be good. But as I was saying, I have been working on the patterns and tracing them out of the various books off of the pattern sheets that were provided. And that's been going fairly well. I did decide to redraw the pattern for my Japanese cocoon dress. I couldn't remember if I added seam allowances when I traced it off or not. And I cut them off before I realized that, and then I was thinking like, "Oh, maybe this isn't gonna go well," and anyway, I just scrapped it, restarted. It actually went very quickly because it's only 2 pattern pieces and then the facing for the neck. So, that was not a problem, and then, what else did I do? I patterned off the skirt from the Everyday Style book, which was super easy because it was basically one pattern piece. It's the same for the front and the back. And then I also did the short sleeveless top and dress to see how that would work. So hang on a sec. I need to text Jen the link for the live stream because she did not get it by email, apparently. So I'm going to do that real quick. And that's why I'm looking down. There we go. Okay. So hopefully she will be joining us soon. So I was working on the pattern for the sleeveless top, and then that you can change the length to either make it a top or a knee length dress. And I was working on that pattern, and as I was patterning it, I realized that there are no markings on the actual pattern. So looking at the instructions, I have to gather the top edge of the neck into like you just gather it and then you have to add the facing to it. So I'm not really sure where the gathers start and end. I guess I'll eyeball it and figure it out. There are no like match the side seams here marks. It was a little strange. There were for the skirt, so it's not like something didn't have it. The skirt had the marks for the where to attach the side seams, but no mark for which side to put the zipper on or how low to place the zipper. And so we'll see. We'll see how that goes once I actually cut everything out and start working on it. I am going to just cut the skirt from my fabric since Mardi Gras is coming up in 2 weeks. I need to get that cut and done. But then for the other patterns, I am going to be making a mock-up first out of muslin, and then I will see how the fit is, how it is to sew together, and we'll report back on that. I'm actually going to make a video about the whole process of making the mock-up and then putting it together and checking the fit and all of that good stuff. So fingers crossed it works. That's all I could say. I so far I found that it looks like the Japanese pattern book has very specific instructions and markings on the pattern to be able to transfer and get everything done. And then the Jade pattern, which was the first indie pattern that I started with at the beginning of the month, was really fantastic. I mean, like I can't say enough about the Made by Ray pattern. Oh, Jen's back. Okay, let's see if we can hear her. Can we hear you?
Hi.
Yes? No? Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Okay, we can't hear Jen still. I don't know what's going on. Okay, so we're working on that. I'm going to keep talking. And then let's see. This is what happens with live streams, right? We're having these tech problems. So, hi Louisa, hello Lee. Let me see if we can add Jen back in and see. Sound yet, Jen? Any
Hi,
sound?
can you hear me now?
Can't hear you. Still
Okay.
can't hear you. Okay. So I'm going to take Jen off the screen while she works on this. And if you're watching live, drop a comment in and let me know you're here. Let me know where you are watching from. And hello, Norma. Nice to see you again. If you are watching on the replay, let me know where you're watching from because, oh, you could hear Jen. So I'm the only one who can't hear Jen. Okay, let me turn up my volume and see.
Oh, good.
If that works. Can
you hear me?
I can't
I
hear
can
you.
hear you.
Norma can hear you. I can't hear you. I don't know what is going on my end then.
Isn't
Because,
this funny?
We can try and do this with lip reading. Like I don't know. I will let Jen, you hear her. Okay, so I'm the only one who can't hear you. Let me check my speakers because it might be something going on at my end. So Jen, if you would like to talk.
Yeah, I'll talk
And
totally. Let me know if for some reason it is
just, I
there's no
think that,
sound. If somebody could chat Tony and let her know.
hi. Oh, you're okay.
Can I go ahead?
I still can't hear anything. I don't know what's going on my end. There's always something, right?
Yeah.
And I was
I'll
having
talk.
problems getting things going this morning. Let me see if I can put in my Bluetooth
Okay.
speakers and then see if that works. So let me see if we can connect in. Hold on, I have to turn off my phone because I'm connecting to my phone. And it's weird because I could hear myself earlier, but maybe now I don't know. Okay. So, Jen, if you want to talk about today's topic, the power of sewing for mental and physical wellness, I am going to pass it over to you, and I am going to just be in the background. So you go ahead and chat.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to see if I can get my speakers to work.
Sounds good. So yeah, and I'm delighted to be joining with Tony again today. And this topic is very, very important and has been key to my experience over the past few years. And just to kind of catch everybody up, so my story is that 8 years ago, roughly 8 years ago, I was diagnosed with young onset Parkinson's disease. And I was just taken aback that I had this tremor. And slowly over time, the physical manifestations of Parkinson's disease have kind of started to shut down some of the dexterity and capabilities with my hands and with movement in general. Um, and I hadn't sewn at that point in quite a long time. And so coincidentally, you know, I get this huge change in my life, and I'm also not sleeping. So I have a ton of sleep disturbances around my Parkinson's. Um, and so, as makers, when we have time on our hands, it's like we want to make things. And so I found myself, up in the middle of the night at all these odd hours, and starting to be challenged a little bit physically. But I, proceeded to start sewing again. And so it was kind of I guess you'd say, a funny disconnect there between having the desire to really start sewing again, but combined with kind of physical difficulties and disabilities. And so I was struck because there was this quote on the wall. I went to the MFA in Houston this week, and it was a sculptor's exhibit. And he sort of intimated that the thing he wanted to do the most was um, to represent the human head. And it was also the thing that he found the most difficult. And I can relate to that so much because for me, sewing has been more challenging as time has gone on in these 8 years. Um, so, what that looks like is having a hard time sort of controlling the fabric, um, working with patterns, with thread. I have actually really though found a ton of solace in sewing again, and so and it's really changed a lot. Kind of what it represents has changed a lot in my life because originally, and Tony and I talked about this, I think, a bit when I joined her on the live stream last time. Initially, sewing was sort of a means to an end. And, before I got out and worked in the design world as a student, I was sewing just to sort of represent my ideas. And I wanted to do that as quickly and painlessly as possible and just kind of get to the end of it. Whereas now, with my current situation, I find a lot more that comes, I sort of get a lot more out of it in terms of the process. And so, I find myself in my sewing room, and here I am. It's kind of messy here behind me, but I'm here, and it takes me probably 5 or 6 times as long to do the same task that it would have taken me before I came down with Parkinson's to do. And so, um, honestly, I find more joy, even though it's incredibly challenging. I look up and notice that I just have a smile on my face, and there's just a ton of gratification that comes from just being in the process and not necessarily the end result. And and so I love following along on Tony's channel because I love to see her giant rack of clothes. That's so amazing, and that's a stretch goal for me. um I I would like to have probably 1 to her 10 because
That
I'm
was a
so
whole
much
year.
slower, and it's much more labored than it used to be. But the process is so much happier. So, I feel like uh, I don't know what I'd do without having this, and I'm grateful um, to still have the faculties that I do have and be able to sew, um, even as difficult and as slow as it can be. It's incredibly gratifying and offers a lot of solace. So, yeah, that's kind of the big picture. Can you hear me, Tony? Or
I
not
I
yet?
actually have my earbuds in, listening
Oh, good.
through my phone,
Oh,
but
good.
I'm talking on my computer.
Okay.
I have like a
Sorry to
weird
make it
echo in my
wonky.
ear. It's fine. I don't know what's happening. It's I started getting connected at like 1:20.
Ah,
So, I don't know. We'll figure it out. This is a good solution in the meantime. So,
yeah.
yeah, no, I feel the same way about sewing and stress relief. I think Norma made that comment of, you know, that's what the whole purpose of it is. I had a very stressful beginning second week of January. I my mom was in town. She's super stressed. She just puts out a lot of stress. And then she was in town for a court case where she's the plaintiff, and I had to testify, and it was just a lot of stress of reliving the situation and everything like that. And I just was like, I just want to go to my sewing room and sew. I just want to sew. Like that's all I want to do. I don't want to just stress about this. And because like if I can just get at my sewing machine and start working on something, I know I'm going to feel better. And I think that's a huge part of it for a lot of people is just being able to process things by just sitting down and sewing.
Mm, absolutely.
Yeah, there's just a lot of gratification to sitting down and like putting something together, and you're like, I may not be able to control these other situations, but I can sit down and I can, work on this project or finish this shirt or whatever it is. And it was funny
Yeah.
because that Friday, um, I had a live stream and I was like, I'm going to start making this shirt before the live stream. And then, that was my knit top that I have since finished, but it was just really good to sit down and just focus on something that wasn't related to anything else. So, if
Absolutely.
anyone has any thoughts, pop a comment in and let me know. Um, you know, if you sew for stress relief or just a hobby or getting your creativity out or what you do it for, and if you have a mental or physical wellness that sewing helps you with. So
Mm.
but I know that Jen and I used to sew very frustrated back in the day. Um, I think we had a lot of angst involving everything we were doing when we were learning to sew and learning to be designers. And, but even then, I still liked it. I think the stress was waiting till the
Oh,
last minute to get something done.
yeah. I mean, and now I look back and I think, how lucky was I that I had full range of movement and was able to do all of these things. But I mean, in the same token, now, I rip out a seam, and we've talked about ripping, or we talked about ripping last time, I think,
Uh-huh.
or we have in the past. Um, and I swear, I rip the seam and I am smiling because I'm thinking, I can still move enough to rip this seam out. So it gives me
Mhm.
so much gratitude. And I think that whether or not I end up with like the most beautiful outcome is completely beside the point. Um, and I think it's simply about being in the moment and and kind of just my mind just goes like in that flow state. And so I think that for me is the best part. And um I remember I learned to sew with my grandmother, and she had a tremendous problem with sleep. And so she would sleep about 3 or 4 hours a night her whole life. It was known throughout our family. And so she would sew all night long by herself in her sewing room. And I suspect that she was probably working through things in her process too, with her own physical issues there. So yeah, and it's funny because I was up at 3:30 this morning. I've been up since 3:30, and which is very, very common for me. But we had some kiddos sleeping over, and my sewing room doubles as like a TV room, like kind of second living room. And there were two kids sleeping in here, and I was like, like I couldn't get to my stuff. And I just thought, oh, I should have gone for the smaller, like, guest bedroom and made that my creative room. But anyway, yeah, I do feel like it helps tremendously with stress and anxiety. And I think that, for me, as tedious as sewing can be, it's like I feel grateful that it's something that I can still do.
Well, I
So
think the other thing is that, you're creating. So
yeah.
you're, even if it's not perfect, it's like you get to work with this beautiful fabric that you picked out and this pattern you picked out, and you're making something either for yourself or someone you love. And that's another whole aspect to it, of just being
Yes.
positive and thinking like I'm going to do this thing and have this skill, even if it's not perfect,
Yes.
you know.
Yes.
Which,
And
by
I
the way,
think,
I'm going to let you know that Lee posted a comment. I'm going to let it pop it up here on the screen so you can see it.
oh, that's
It just says,
nice.
"You're an inspiration, Jen."
Oh, that's
So
super nice. Thank you.
um, it's just, yeah, I think I've I know grandma's on the stream, so my grandma's watching. Hi, grandma. And
You
she
cool.
is 97. She will be 98 next month. And she's up until like last year, she was still sewing. And I will say last year just because she she was making this giant t-shirt quilt for my cousin. And
Awesome.
that took almost 2 years. So after that, she's kind of like, I'm going to let the machine rest for a little while because she was kind of like, it was such a labor of love, but it kept her busy. It kept her hands moving. It
Hmm.
helped with her arthritis because, she was doing these motor skills and these pinning and unpinning and feeding it through and, that sort of thing. And she just told me the other day, she's like, "Yeah, I think I'm gonna pull the machine out and I'm gonna do some alterations on some clothes I've got because, they don't fit. They're not fitting quite right. So I'm gonna do that." And I was like, "More power to you, grandma."
I
Like, I
love
hope I'm still sewing when I'm almost 98. So,
it.
but I mean, one thing I found with sewing is my motor skills are better. Like,
Hmm.
just my reflexes are better. I'm more ambidextrous than I used to
Hmm.
be.
Hmm.
Because when you're feeding stuff with your hand, like even if you're just holding the fabric, you're still using your non-dominant hand. And I
Yes.
think that helps with your skills. And when you're ripping, you're holding the seam open with the non-dominant hand and ripping with the dominant hand. And I think that has to help, So I
Yeah.
feel like that's another thing that I know has helped me is doing that. And then, I sew with my left foot. I know that's kind of weird.
I know.
I'm
I
right
love
side
that.
dominant, but I'm kind of like I drive with the right foot. The left foot has to do something. So the left
That's
foot does
so
the sewing.
interesting. I wonder how that started. Do you remember if you always did it that way or did you flip?
I think when I was in grad school and I'd take my machine to the sewing lab, and this was in at Savannah College of Art and Design.
Mhm.
Our sewing lab had these industrial machines, but they really scared me because they didn't have a safety plate on them.
Oh,
And my classmate actually sewed through her thumb, and then the needle broke off. But so it was like coming out. Yeah. And I was
I
just
am
like,
going to tell you. I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but I got the clear foot that has, that you can see through. It's a clear plastic presser
Mhm,
foot. And I was not at my best physically.
mhm,
And it got the needle got the tip of my fingernail. And I was like, I am getting rid of that presser foot because I think that
mhm,
the illusion of nothing being dangerous from the clear,
mhm, mhm.
is what caused that. And I was just like, I do not want to end up with screaming my head off with the needle going through my thumb. But
Yeah, it
that's the
was
opposite of stress relief.
right, exactly. And so, yeah, we spent the evening in the ER, so it was not, and after
Oh,
that, I mean, like, I didn't love the machines because they were too fast for me back
yeah,
at that point in my life. And so I was like, I'm gonna just take my machine. And I think that the way that I had to sit at my table and like because the way that it was a higher table, I had to like stack books and then put my foot pedal on the books. And for some reason, it just worked better on the left side.
yeah,
So I think that's how I started it.
interesting.
Yeah. So that's just so I just kind of I feel more comfortable, which is weird, like using my left
Uh-huh.
foot to sew, but that way my right leg gets a break, you know.
Yeah.
But once again, using non-dominant side of your body for skills with
Yeah.
sewing that,
That's
you wouldn't
so
normally
interesting.
use.
I wonder if anybody who's watching the live stream does anything that's kind of counterintuitive that way with
Yeah,
sewing.
if you do, let me know in the comments and we'll pull it up here. Lee has another comment I'll pop up. She just says it's interesting that we both have close sewing relationships with our grandmothers.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Um
Norma has just commented that she's enjoying our stories.
I mean, and grandmothers, I mean, I have to say, grandmothers are the best, or some grandmothers are the best
Yeah.
because they've got time and attention, and they're done with raising their own kids. Their work is kind of done there.
Hmm.
And so for me, I feel like my grandmother saved my life by teaching me how to sew,
Hmm.
because it gave me so much. And you know I mean, because really, when you're learning to sew, all you really need is a beginning. You need to
Yeah.
understand some of the basics of how to cut, how to use the machine. I mean, the directions on commercial patterns are very explicit. And now with YouTube, you don't even need that. You can do anything from the ground up with YouTube. But
Yeah, it's kind of amazing
yeah, because we kind
that
of needed that teacher back before the resources that everyone has now.
yeah.
But yeah, I'm quite grateful. I'm
I am too. Even though my grandma did not teach me to sew because she was running her own business at the time,
okay.
when I wanted to learn to sew, and then we moved overseas for all of high school. So I figure I would have learned then, but I wasn't in the country.
Uh-huh.
So grandma did save my bacon in college when she would drive up when I was having a total meltdown. I'm never going to get this done. It's due tomorrow. And she did drive up from Houston to Austin more than once.
I love
I'd like call her
it.
at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon and be like, come up here. And then she would drive. It's 2.5 hours for everyone who doesn't live in Texas. It's so she'd drive up from Houston and then spend the night and then help me into the wee hours of
Wow.
morning get the
Wow.
project done. So I could just get a B. It wasn't like I was getting an A. I was just getting a B.
I mean, but I think that's wonderful. How
Yeah.
lucky.
No, I
I bet
I
that was
feel
fun
lucky.
too.
Yeah. Yeah. It wasn't fun at the time. It was very stressful. And I remember crying and grandma being like, okay, calm down. We're going to work this out. You will have
Yeah.
something to turn in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because too many times, in my family, in the history of my family, too many people have just ended up cutting up their home ec sewing project and turning it in scraps. Yeah. So she was like, that is
Willfully
not going to
cutting it
happen on
out.
my watch.
Uh-huh. That's wonderful.
But so, does anyone else sew for mental or physical wellness? Want to share any stories in the comments? I will pop it up on the screen so Jen can see it too. And what about you, Jen? I missed the whole begin part, so I don't want you to repeat any of that. But I mean, I think that
Well,
it's a stress relief, just right.
it is. And I think it's the least stressful when I'm sewing for myself, because I know, like, I just put, and I think I mentioned this, or we talked about prototypes, and um kind of making a partial or a full prototype before committing
Hmm.
to a garment in the real fabric. And I think that's wonderful for me because it really takes the pressure off. And
Hmm.
then it's just, who cares? And sometimes I'll wear the prototype and it's as cute and even better than the final garment, because it, may have some energy that was unexpected and different. Um, which has been the case a couple of times. It's like I have some throwaway fabric that I use for a prototype and it ends up being fantastic. But yeah, that it's least stressful when it's for me. I've been sewing a little bit for others, and that's when it's really like, uh-oh, because what if they turn it inside out? You know what I mean? Inspect how many times I've gone over a seam with or loose threads, or whatever it might be. If it's for me, it's the least stressful. And that seems a bit selfish. Like, I do feel like maybe I should be more selfless in terms of my sewing and craft. But yeah, I mean, it's just sort of like uh, it definitely is. Whenever I don't place any limits on it, it is the best. And I definitely see myself, like, I will just notice that I'm just randomly smiling and I'm all
Yeah,
alone, and it's like, no, nothing,
yeah.
not even music on, and it's just like,
Yeah, I'll
wow.
sing. I'll have music on and be singing along and sewing,
Uh-huh.
and my boyfriend will be in the other room and be like, Are you having fun?" Yes, I'm having a lot of fun. Thank you. I just ripped the seam 3 times, but I'm still happy. So I just want to pop up a comment real quick from Louisa, who says, "My grandma is wonderful." I believe Louisa enjoyed the video from grandma. I remember her posting a comment. So thank you for that, Louisa. And I'm sure grandma is enjoying hearing that and seeing your comment, since I know she's watching. And I'm hoping to have another video with grandma coming up next month. I thought it would be fun to have her back on So Lounge in her birthday month.
Love
And
it.
she will probably be 98 by then, which she's okay with me telling you guys, since,
You,
she's now a YouTube star.
absolutely. She's such a star. She's also a star at parties. She was,
She is.
sort of
That
like
is true.
holding court at your
She is,
house. I
yeah.
love it.
She has entertained Jen and her husband at some of my parties. Grandma tells a lot of really good stories.
I
So,
had another
uh,
thought that I wanted to interject too, around around sewing for stress relief. So I think that the other thing I've done is um, I have not limited myself in terms of the types of techniques that I'll use. So
mhm,
I'm typically, and this is going to sound hacky, but I'm usually looking for the technique that is going to be easiest for me. And whether that means setting in a sleeve in a way that may not be the recommended way to set in a sleeve. We
mhm,
talked about cutting, interfacing,
mhm.
and how you can kind of cheat it a little bit with cutting it at the exact same size as the pattern and not taking any
I
off of
always
the.
do that. I don't think that's cheating.
I mean, like, let's make it fun and let's make it easy on ourselves. There's someone who I'd seen on YouTube. I'm not going to name names, but this person was adhering to sort of like very strict Victorian sewing techniques.
Mhm.
And it's fascinating, but like that is 100% not me and not where I ever wanted to be in terms of like
Mhm.
uh, being sort of stringent or correct. Maybe if you were a costume designer, perhaps, but yeah, figuring out like the technique that's going to work for me and being honest about that is helpful. And then also, there are so many amazing notions and machines and all of these things, and I don't deny myself that anymore, whereas I
Yeah.
used to, you know?
Well, I think also having the thing that makes it easier. Like, I found this plastic thing and it's for turning casings. And
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, you can use the safety pin method to turn it. It takes forever. I'm horrible at it.
Mhm.
And I've just found that, hey, look, using this little tool that costs, $4 is more efficient for me. And it makes me happier because I can get my project done faster. And if you need to
Yes.
use those little gadgets or like you say hacks or shortcuts,
Mhm.
a lot of people sew in sleeves flat even when the pattern doesn't say to do it that way, because it's easier
Yeah,
and the end result is very close, you
it's
know.
close. Yeah, it's not,
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen your sleeves in person. They're more beautiful than mine for sure. But I mean, it's like, you know, if I'm talking about cutting part of the time off that's kind of already you know, extenuated, it makes more sense.
Yeah.
So just I think that kind of knowing my limits and figuring out what's going to get me some impact with the effort that I'm willing to put out. So yeah,
Well, I think also that, I only first started sewing sleeves correctly in September when grandma helped me with that video and I shared it with everyone, how to do it right. I didn't do it right. I thought I was doing it close, but no. And maybe if
what
I
were you doing differently? I'm curious.
okay, so in case y'all don't know this and you missed the video, when you sew a sleeve, you sew it from inside
Oh
the
yeah, I
sleeve.
remember that moment. Yes.
Yes,
Hmm.
you don't sew it from outside the sleeve and put the sleeve at the what do you call it? The arm of your machine, like the sleeve around that to sew on the outside. You sew it flat from the inside because that's how
Yes.
you make sure it's not puckering.
Yes.
I didn't know. I was like, I never could figure that out. Like, how do you
That's
get it
why
to
we
not
were
pucker?
taking out our sleeves over and over again.
Yeah, because we were sewing them like that's why we have the arm here. Where you put the sleeve on and then you do.
Hmm.
And yeah, so since grandma told me that. Now, I think if I'd been paying attention back in college when she sewed sleeves onto my shirt for me, I might have been doing this all along.
Yeah,
But unfortunately, it
we
was
can't we
I think
can't
that's why I
we
think
can't
that's
pick
why I
up
designed
everything.
yeah, but I designed kimono sleeves and raglan sleeves for all of my projects once I designed my own
Yeah.
garments. I don't know if you remember
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
I do now that you
Yeah.
mention it, but like
Yeah.
I just think of you as like a kimono and a raglan sleeve gal. Like I literally, when I think of your sketches, I see a raglan.
Yeah. Because I couldn't sew in a regular sleeve.
I like it.
It is something. So Louisa made another comment. I'm just going to share it. She is looking forward to seeing Grandma again in my videos. I know Grandma will be very excited, and she'll be happy to know that you are looking forward to it, Louisa, along with other viewers. So I think with sewing, it's the thing that's so amazing about it is it's the combination of stress relief and creativity,
Mm,
and I think that creativity in and of itself can relieve stress doing any kind of a creative activity. And
mhm.
then just the sewing and the rhythm of the machine and the thread and the needle and it going through the fabric
Yeah.
and the it
Yeah.
just kind of makes this whole thing go, and my sister doesn't sew clothes. She started quilting for stress relief.
Uh-huh.
She is a child psychologist. Jen knows her very well. Um, she works
She's
in an
awesome.
inpatient unit here in the county hospital, and she's a lot of stress. And she just was watching some quilting videos on YouTube and thought, hey, I think I'm going to try this. I think I can make squares, you know? And so she started and making some different quilts, and they're not huge, they're small. I'm actually sitting on one of them, so I'm going to stand up and show you guys. So
Oh,
this is her
cute.
small quilts. This is actually
Super.
Clementine's quilt. Um, I put it on the chair because she sits here and then it's full of cat hair. But she started with little quilts like pet quilts. And then she moved on to lap quilts because she doesn't want to get a long arm. She wants to do all the quilting herself. And when you're just using a regular home machine, that's what you have to do. And now
Mhm.
she's moved on to making bags. So she's made some cute little small tote purses and
Cute.
given them as gifts. And you know, she's like, I'm really enjoying doing that. So, oh, thank you, Louisa. I'm gonna
I
give a
love
shout
it.
out here for Anna, cute quilt. Yeah,
Super cute. And she
she
bought some fabric when we were together last time that was for another quilt that looks fabulous. And maybe you can
yes,
you got to show her work again at
I
some point.
will. I will for sure. I have another one over here on the floor, but I'd have to like lean out to get it. It was one of her very early quilts, and she has another quilt down here that's Honey's quilt. So she made pet quilts first and then kept going once she kind of got it down and got the skills going.
I
So,
like
but I
it.
mean, you know, stress relief. It's a huge thing to have to go deal with that kind of stress and you know, suicidal kids and just depressed kids and all of that, and then to be able to go home and say, I'm just going to put it out of my head and I'm just going to sit down and work on this quilt,
Yeah,
you know. And
it's
I
a win.
think that if more people sewed either quilts or clothing or whatever, everybody would have a lot less stress. I feel like the depression rates in the US would come down if more people sewed.
You know, wouldn't it be great? And also, I mean, like I've thought to myself before about limiting myself to only to not purchasing new clothing and what
Mhm.
that would be like. And I've seen it, you
Mhm.
know, there are people who do that.
Mhm.
That sew their clothing. And I thought, you know, wouldn't it be amazing for the environment, for like everything, you know, all the way
Mhm.
around?
It would
Maybe
be.
sewing is the
I
answer.
think it's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work.
You know, especially if you've got like for you, you've got, you know, a husband and 3 kids. That's
Yeah.
a and yourself. That's a lot of clothes. It's a lot of
Oh yeah,
clothes.
no way could I do that for everybody. Nor would
Yeah.
my daughter want me to. She
Yeah, I
is
was like,
having
Kinsey
none
wouldn't be
of
down
it
with
with
that.
my sewing. Not interested.
Well, I know one thing I have noticed is that I would much rather go shopping for fabric than shopping for clothes, you know? I
Yes,
don't know if you're having that kind
absolutely.
of resurgence of feelings of like, "Wait, I can go make this better."
I would be happy never to go clothing shopping.
Yeah.
I would be fine with it, you know, but
Because it's
fabric
like you
shopping,
can
I will never, I don't know if I'll ever say goodbye to that one,
no,
you know.
absolutely. Even if that room behind you was stacked full of fabric, you'd still say yes. No, but the thing is it's like, you know, if you're looking for something in particular, odds are it's gonna be able to you're gonna be able to find a pattern for it. Or if you know how to make patterns, you can make your own pattern. And then, you know, to have to go shopping and then go look for stuff, and the prices are so high now. It's just not something I wanna do. And now that I'm
Yes.
starting to sew knits and I found the jade pattern, which I can just make work shirts from, like, you know, now I don't have to even go buy knit shirts. I feel like
Yes.
I'm winning all the way around. Yeah.
That's wonderful. I was thinking when you talked about grandma's t-shirt quilt, if
Mhm.
quilting with knits, I mean, that seems really challenging to me.
Oh, it was.
Yeah.
Mhm. That's why it took 2 years.
I mean, I know that it's often done. Like t-shirt quilts are a big thing
Mhm.
for graduating seniors and like all those
Yeah.
kinds of things. But anyway, my thoughts went back to your knits episode because um, I'd like to know kind of what that's like. But um,
I
I've never
I
been a
think
real knit sewer before, so.
well, I know because knits were so scary and hard. I mean, you watching that video, I'm sure you laughed because you were told the same thing by the same professor.
Well, okay, yes, but I don't know if I like. I don't think that I kind of held on to that very much.
Mhm.
But most companies, if they can, will have a knitwear designer versus wovens.
Mhm.
Um, and I do see why. It's a different, it's got a different set of requirements and how it's treated and
Mhm.
everything else. But I was thinking back to your mention of the industrial machine. I bet industrial machines take knits much better because of the intake of the fabric is typically more. There's more control on a
Mm.
commercial machine as opposed to the kinds of machines that we use at home, where often I think the problem with knits is around stretching and
Yeah.
the feet being different. But
Well,
that's
I
my
also
opinion.
think it's because whoever's making those knits on industrial machines probably has a better handle on it than I do,
Skill,
you know?
yeah, 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 yeah.
It's if you sew
Fair
knits
enough.
all day on an industrial machine, pretty sure gonna be better than I am.
Yeah, yeah.
But, I like making my own clothes. I like wearing my own clothes. And I think that that's another whole aspect of this is it's like, when you wear something that you've made and somebody looks at you and is like, "Oh, that's fantastic." You're like, "Oh, well, thank you. I made it." And then
Mm-hmm.
that's more like just reinforcement of the let's do it again. Let's sit down at the
Yes.
machine and keep producing. Because that is another mental component, it's like your ego gets boosted, you get all those feel good feelings, and you're like, "Oh, thank you. Yes, I made this. I
Mm-hmm.
made this." And
Absolutely.
yeah.
You
Let
should
me know
you
in the
should totally
comments
do
if
that.
you enjoy making the things that you wear, or giving them to people as gifts and then being super excited because they think it's store bought and then realize you made it. So, yeah, no, that's another huge part of it.
I was curious to know, do people ever try and give you alterations to do for them or
Yes.
ask you to
And
do them?
I say no. I don't do alterations. Well, I don't know if you weren't there. You'd already gone off to New York, but I worked for a tailor for my internship, um, for like 3 months. Like, I had to get that internship credit to graduate, and
That's
I did it over the
awesome.
summer. So I can hand sew well, and that's how I learned how to use a thimble, and I hem pants fast, and but I hate it. I
Mm,
mean, in my
yes.
heyday, I could hem 10 pairs of pants an hour.
Oh my gosh, that's
Yeah.
outrageous.
Yeah, it was like 3 minutes a leg. 3 minutes a
Wow.
leg. Yeah, because I could do 10 pairs in an hour. Yeah, and that was for free. The
Um,
tailor was charging Banana Republic $30 per pair, and Banana Republic was charging their customers $60. And I got
uh, we'll take it
pickles.
offline and definitely talk about this one because I'm curious to know who the tailor was.
But that's all I did. I only hemmed. I didn't
Yeah.
do like real alterations. I just hemmed. I hemmed pants and skirts for 3
Yeah.
months. So I'm really good at it. But you can't pay me to do alterations. I mean,
Yeah.
I hem my own stuff. If, Anna has something she needs hemmed, no problem. But, okay,
And
so we
what
got some
about kind of
comments here.
repurposing? Do you ever take something and kind of turn it into something else?
I do not.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I know that that's very trendy on YouTube, and a lot of sewing channels do that. I haven't done it. I have a poncho that I'm gonna rework, but I'm using a different poncho pattern.
Hmm.
So I have a couple of comments here I'm going to pop up. Louisa says she loves wearing her own clothes and getting compliments. And I know that feeling. It's great. And then Patricia also loves to make her own clothes, but hates hemming.
Hates the hemming. Here, here. Agreed.
I don't hate the hemming part, but if I can do a blind hem on my machine instead, I will.
Yes. Reasons to get a good machine. You can
Yeah, reasons
actually
to
do
get a
a
machine that
blind.
has a blind hem foot.
Yeah, worth it.
Because a really good blind hem foot, I mean, and if you've got the right fabric, it doesn't work with everything,
Uh-huh.
but most fabrics you can do with a blind hem foot and
Uh-huh.
use that stitch. It's magic because it's
I'm
just
going to
faster.
dive in on that because I have not used I bought a new machine a couple years ago, and it's perfect because it does a lot of things automatically, which is very,
Mhm.
very helpful for me. But the blind hemming, I have not tried.
There's a trick to holding the fabric and getting it folded and lined up.
Yes.
I did make a video about that. It's one of my earlier
Ooh.
videos.
Okay.
And it's for the Bernina. So it will work for your machine since you have a Bernina.
Excellent. I'm totally
And
going to try
yeah,
that.
it's just, it speeds up the process. I mean, like sometimes you can just sew in a hem and it's not a big deal and it looks fine and it has more of a sporty look. But sometimes you need that blind hem.
Hmm.
And then sometimes it has to be hand sewn,
Yeah.
you know, and you just kind of have to go with what the fabric calls for.
I do have a rolled hem that I use because I sew with
Mm,
silk, and it's like a handkerchief kind of rolled, that small. It looks like a
hmm
little bit like a hand rolled hem, and it works
hmm
pretty well.
I have the foot
But
for
yeah,
that, but I have not ever used it.
yeah, it's good. It's a good foot to have. It's been
Yeah,
helpful for me anyway. So
awesome. So, yeah, I think that if you're coming back to sewing after a hiatus, in my experience, and I think Jen will agree, it's great stress relief. It's it's a wonderful creative
yes,
way to be happy.
yeah. I mean, I am absolutely jazzed, and I love it whenever I meet other. Um, I would say, what would you fashion sewing, apparel sewing?
Apparel
When I meet
sewing, yeah.
other apparel sewers, because the majority of sewers that I meet are quilters.
Yeah.
Um, but when I meet other apparel sewers, it's such a joy to like compare notes and like talk about where to find things and
Mhm.
all of that. So
And it feels
it's
like sometimes we're few and far between.
yeah, yeah,
Because the quilters
yeah,
have a better, like, organization. They have quilting guilds and they have quilt shops. It's like, unless we run into each
yes,
other at Joann's or High Fashion or whatever your local apparel fabric store is, we don't tend to,
uh-huh.
group. And I feel like we
Hmm.
should start a sewing guild of some sort, but, you know.
That's a wonderful idea.
Yeah, I mean, like, I mean, like, it
Apparel
might
sewer.
just be us.
Houston area apparel sewers. Come on out. Join us.
We're gonna have a meetup.
We can have tea. That
Yes.
would be so fun.
No, it would be fun.
A lot of
It would for sure
machines. We
be.
have to go somewhere that's got a lot of plugs. So,
Can you imagine showing up at a coffee shop in Montrose when everybody's got a machine and extension cords and power
it
strips
would
so
be
we can
like,
all plug
what's
in?
going on? Yeah,
It would
that
be
would be
funny.
great.
But I just wanted to say thank you to my lovely guest, Jen
Thank
Chenault,
you.
and thank you for holding down the fort once again, once I had tech
I'm
issues.
well, it was my tech issue to begin with, but I'm jinxing you. So I'm sorry about that, Tony, but it was a
No, no, no.
blast to be
I
on
had
and talk to
internet
you.
problems last time and you weren't there. Thanks for
Yes.
coming,
Yeah. Yeah.
Norma.
Yeah. Actually.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so we will be back the last Friday of the month. Maybe Jen will join me if she does not have other obligations. And
I always enjoy hanging with you.
I
It's a great
and
place to be. It's the So Lounge, of course.
of course, it's the way it used to be when we'd hang out at the lab at Gearing Hall Lab. It's So Lounge
Yes.
now.
Yes.
It's just so much better. So thank you, everyone. Oh, Patricia just, I'm going to pop this up, Jen. She said she'd travel to join our sewing guild.
Come on. We could do a meetup. Hey, let's pick a place or come to Houston.
Yeah. So we'll talk about that some more. See if we can get a gang of sewing ladies together. That would
So
be fun.
fun.
And be sure to leave a comment. Let me know where you're from if you are watching this on the replay. As always, it has been so lovely to hang out with Jen and with all of you. And I hope that you will join us for the next live stream that will be coming up very, very soon. And there we go. Oops, no, there we go. I'm going to get this down at some point. So let me